Welcome to Earrings Off. I'm Lou.
And I'm Teresa. Let's get started.
So, Teresa,
Yes.
have you, have heard about, certainly been following the news and everything, and I know that the stimulus checks that people recently, those recently went out, but I'm still hearing so much concern from people and talking to folks and watching the news about the unemployment numbers.
Right. Yeah.
Certainly I know people in my own family that have been impacted by that, and that is very upsetting. Of course, with the health scare is paramount. That coats everything with the
Mm-hmm.
COVID-19, but also the fact that in the midst of this pandemic, we're just being just overwhelmed with the concerns about employment. And I mean, it's twofold. It's people now being required to work and, place themselves in harm's way.
Yes. Yes.
Not the least of which, of course, are the medical personnel, but
Yeah.
people as well that
Yeah.
are being impacted. But also thinking about, that's one piece of it, but also thinking about folks whose jobs have ended. And
Right.
it's just a lot to take in.
It is a lot to take in. But first, I want to say kudos to those um, medical personnel, to
Yeah.
the grocery store clerks,
Yeah.
and all those folks who have been holding it down for us so that we can continue to eat
Yeah.
and get treated.
Yeah.
Kudos to
Yeah.
them. But you're right. It is a huge. I don't even know the adjective to describe what it is, because it's like you said. I think you used twofold.
Yeah.
Can't remember the word, but I'm having a loss of words right now. But the impact is amazing, and having to worry about being infected, and having to worry about work,
Right.
and having to worry about being Black.
Right. Oh,
Honestly, let's just put it out there, right? So,
yeah.
uh,
Because not only are we faced with the additional impact as on our health, on our mortality, even as a result
yeah,
of the virus, because certainly we know we're getting sicker and we're dying at a higher rate.
right.
So that's a reality. But
Hmm.
also, when something like this happens, it's just like the old saying that if America gets a cold, Black folks, we get pneumonia.
Yeah,
Ever.
I had that stuck out in my mind from the first time I heard it. It's true. So
Yeah.
when you talk about unemployment, if you say, I don't even know what the rates are right now,
Well,
but
but when you talk about it, see, at the very start of the conversation, we're already impacted because we have the higher rate of unemployment anyway, even
anyway,
without the
absolutely.
pandemic. You
So
know?
I read something. I don't know what the unemployment rates have gone to right now today.
Yeah.
But prior to this thing happening, I think we were at some all-time low of 3.6.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
3.6% America, in
That's
America.
it's actually, you're right on it, because it
Yeah,
said that we were at about 3.5. It was a 50-year low. This was as of
yeah,
in February of this year.
yeah.
And but
But
yeah,
right, Black America is
right.
almost always doubled what
Exactly.
America is. So
Yeah.
yeah, so right now, say we're at 20%
Mhm.
in America as an average. So you can see, if you use that same math, where we are for Black people,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
And I looked
Our
at that, and
family, our families, our communities are going to be more impacted. We all are, as a result of this. Yeah.
yeah, and the effects are going to be far and long reaching.
Well,
It's going to,
I thought about, even in my own family, I have a niece that finished college, not too long ago, and did all the right things, did very well in college, and got out and got her first job and is now laid off. So,
yeah,
how you finish college, you got such high hopes for your life, and, plotting your way and planning what you're going to do, and then this happens.
No
So,
doubt. Think she's going to bounce back, but I get exactly what you're saying. But the problem, though, is this: we're the first to be considered for layoffs.
oh,
Unfortunately, we're we work in those jobs that are not considered recession proof.
yeah,
And even some of the jobs that are recession proof are being hit by this COVID-19
right.
because of the whole social distancing aspect of it. So you had to close down because for a long time, like hair salons and places to enhance beauty have always been recession proof because people want to feel
In
good.
our community, because let's be honest, we don't care what's going on. That's gonna be. I mean, that's
No, I think that's universal though,
yeah.
Lou. I do. You're right though, us more than others. And
And I'm
yeah.
counting myself in that number too. So don't stop sending me any hate stuff. Well, you can, but whatever. But that's a reality. It is.
Yeah, it is. It's a reality. But even with this, with COVID-19, even that industry has been impacted greatly,
Yeah.
you know. But we tend to have those jobs.
Yeah.
Right, wrong, indifferent, that's where we are. But even if, in the case of your niece, she's college educated, she had a good job, and she still was laid off,
Yeah. Well,
right?
because
So
well, that's from the what is it? Last hired, first fired thing.
yes,
But many times we are the last hired, and not only that, but the reality is it is tougher for us to get in these positions that are recession proof and that are the kinds of jobs that we can work from home when this is going on. When something like this happens, we're just not in those higher level positions that easily translate to remote work, and that's
right,
an issue. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
So you
So
still
there are some jobs out there that where that are. I think you're saying. I don't know if you're saying lower skilled or
Mhm. Yeah.
but there are still some industries that are managing to stay afloat right now where people are managing like for instance public utility services.
Right.
So if you're working for an electric company or water sewage or waste or trash recycling, all of those, we have to keep
Right.
those companies going, otherwise we'd have a real crisis on our hands.
Right.
There's that, and then of course with education, that's one that's not. So yeah, there are a few recession proof jobs out there yet, but I think even in talking about this, it this is such a really deep subject. We have to talk about it's first comes with understanding why why do we as Black people find ourselves here, and I think what happens is it's crises such as these. We had the same conversation, I believe, when Katrina struck Louisiana.
Oh,
We
yeah.
had the same conversation when the floods hit Missouri.
Yeah.
We had the same. We keep having the same conversation about how we're impacted, like how you started the conversation. When America gets a cold, Black America gets pneumonia. Why is that?
Well,
That's what
it's
I was just going to say. That is the real question, and I think, and I hope and I pray that people start thinking about this and start talking about it, and we start doing something about it. And I think it's going to go back to educating, getting education, and that whole. Go
well,
ahead. What you
well,
gonna say?
you're exactly right, because it's just like our parents and elders tried to tell us when we were younger that going to put us in a better position. There's just no way to sugarcoat that. It's a hard truth, but we have to start there, to making sure that we position ourselves to get in better position, so that we not only when things like this happen, we're a bit more stable And because of that, we can reach back and be an anchor for our families and for our community. That's a big piece of it. But also when we talked about, first I started out by saying it's like a two-pronged thing with
Yeah.
our health and
Right.
being more at risk, and us being in the positions that are not recession proof. And that
Yeah.
can be as a result of a lot of factors, not the least of which is racism in this country, but also the lack of education, lack of opportunities. That's impacting us. There's also a third prong to this, and that is the fact that we are our net worth. When something happens, we typically don't have the savings that other people have, that other groups have, that will carry us through some type of crisis. And again, we can keep saying all day that that's because of the racism, that's because of various factors in this country that we live in, which have impacted our ability to save and to thrive. That's a reality. But also some of this is just our not being responsible ourselves, because we can easily buy into the marketing, people telling us we got to have the best this, we got to have the flashy car, we got to have the newest sneakers. And if you're not careful as an individual, you can get caught up into what society says you have to have at a certain point in your life, and so we start putting on these layers to make it appear that we're where we should be financially, or where we think we should be, in quotes. But when you're not actually there, and we set ourselves up in situations. So, and I keep going back to, my mom and the people in my neighborhood, and people making better choices, not because they too didn't have desires and wanted things, but because there was a bit of self-discipline to understand that, you know what, no, I need to put this money away for a rainy day in case something happens, and I need to be able to respond to it. I know people get tired of me saying it, but my mom raised 7 kids, and she was able to do that because she was very fiscally responsible. And I think we have to talk about that.
Right. But you bring up some good points, Lou, but even with folks who have the means, let's say Black people who have quote, unquote, made it, who have the six figure jobs, they're let's just say middle income America, white versus Black. It is still a matter of them Black people having $1 to every $10 of what they have, right? So
that's very real.
So those are the kind of things I would like to see us overcome. If you are doing the same job, a Black person versus a white job, and you're doing it in the same manner, you're doing it at the same level of proficiency, then you should be paid the same. You should be paid the same. So that's a problem that we have to get over. Then there's the matter of generational wealth.
Absolutely.
So from what I know about that, white people, other people tend to prepare better for that. Mm-hmm. And that, for instance, generational inheritances that are left behind, as I understand it, and we probably should get Daniel on here to talk about this with us again, because it's about finances. I'm a little lacking there, but as I understand it, those funds are taxed at a much lower rate. Therefore, providing them and their children with the leg up from the beginning.
Oh, absolutely.
Because we have not and do not prepare for our children.
Well, and the
same way, and to give that.
You're right, but the reality is many of us don't have that kind of luxury. I'm not talking about that. Certainly you were loved. I would not take my background, my family for anything. There's no substitute for the foundation that was birthed in me through what I got from my family in
Oh
terms
yeah.
of, who I am. But the reality is, even now where we are, Teresa, we're still, I had a conversation recently, last week, as a matter of fact, with a girlfriend. She was just checking in, and we were chatting, and in the conversation, we were talking about, family members who have recently died, and you still have to come up with money to bury people, a family member that was incarcerated. So here we are. Even if you make the six figures, you still got other issues and
You,
challenges that other folks don't have. I have white friends. I think they and I talk to them about this, because we're close enough for me to say to them, well, this is what I got going on now, and but when we chat, and what they have going on is far different from what I have going on.
absolutely.
Those are the challenges that we're still dealing with. Yeah.
Absolutely. We once we make it, we then have to help. The burden, not really a burden, but the expectation, or
Well,
it's actually not even expectation. It's kind of an unspoken fact that you have to help others. you know, you
but I think it is an expectation, because somebody had to help us, So that, it's just understood that you don't then get to go off and skipping happily down the yellow brick road because you somehow, became financially savvy or able to stand a financial hit, or take a financial hit. You have to be able to make sure that you are looking back to say, okay, how's everybody else doing? Are we okay? Because we know, as a community, I can't be okay and you're not okay.
right.
So
Yeah.
it's just the way we have always operated. And and that, thinking like that, quite honestly, I think that's been essential to not only who we are, but how we survive. That is a reality.
Yeah. So it's like a catch-22. So where does it end, and how do we break it? How
Yeah.
do we get beyond that, so that we have uh savings, 3 months of savings in case of a situation like we find ourselves in today,
Yeah.
and we don't have to worry about it if we lose our jobs. How do we get to that point?
Well, I think when you talked about earlier that, in the workplace, we talked about making sure that we're in positions so that we're treated fairly. But and we keep fighting for that, and it is a worthy fight, and you never stop fighting for that. But we also have to recognize that we have to be in the positions to do the hiring, to make decisions, to own businesses. And the way we do that is that sometimes we have to deny ourselves in other areas so that we can come up with funding and form relationships so that we can get in a position to actually be the entrepreneur, to be the person in charge, so that
Yeah.
we make these decisions. And then when we do that, we as Black people, we don't get to let ourselves off the hook. We have to support our businesses. We
Oh, you have
do that. We can't just expect that people are going to put blood, sweat, and tears to open up something, and then we go into hate mode because we didn't open it up and we don't want to support it. When
Yeah.
I tell you, I will give you an example that just still bothers me to this day. When one time we lived in Charlotte, and you remember that, and there was a Black restaurant there that was amazing. I mean, it really was. And we would go there maybe once a week, sometimes twice a week, but the food was wonderful. The service, the decor, you could tell this family had put everything. And we talked to them and we knew them, and they shared their story. They did put everything. This was their dream into opening up this restaurant. And that restaurant just struggled. We would go there. There wouldn't be anybody there. But right beside that restaurant just the next building over, there was this franchise, and the place had people out the door all the time, And I was just thinking, I would look at them, and when I was passing by, thinking, there's this restaurant, right? You can't go sometimes. And they eventually closed. The one time when we were there, they had the padlock on the door, the notice saying it had closed, and everything had been confiscated, a lien placed on the building. And I tell you, this was probably 2 years ago, and my husband and I still talk about that. We still talk about it because we know that family, we got to know them and how much they sacrificed to open up that building. And when I mentioned it one time to a lady that was from the Charlotte area, her response to me basically was, well, people really didn't know them. And, you sort of have to be from here for people to support you. And I just thought, wow.
That is too bad. And all the things that those people are missing out on, that is just so sad.
So I think,
So sad they're doing well now. I hope they found their niche and they were able to.
I hope so. But the point to all of this that I'm saying about this point is that, we want things to be fair, and in the right world, that's the way it would be. But when the deck stacked against us, then what can we do that we have control over to try to address these inequities and place ourselves in a better position? And I tell you, I saw a video the other day on Facebook of this father in DC who was talking to his young son about finances, and he was this young boy who was very young was rattling off financial terms and talking about issues, information that he's going to need to grasp to do well in terms of understanding how the world works. And I was just amazed at that, and so thankful that here is this brother taking the time to make sure his son understands the financial implications of decisions. And I think that's where it starts.
That's what I was about to say. When you finish, that's where it starts.
Yeah, because my mother was not, she didn't finish high school, but it wasn't so much what she told me. She may not have understood all the financial terms. It was how she lived that made an impact on me.
Right.
I could understand, no, you don't have to go out there and have that. And you don't, but why do you want those new pair of shoes? Is that just because you saw somebody wearing those? Do you need new shoes?
Right.
And I saw something recently where somebody on a $32,000, $40,000 income was making a car payment of $780 a month.
Wow.
We've got to, we have to question ourselves. And I've been there, done that. I get it. But I'm so thankful that's not the way I think now. And so I think we can't let ourselves off the hook about that. So, yeah.
Yeah. As you were speaking, I was remembering there was a guy, or it could have been a husband and wife, but what they did was for 1 year, they were only going to purchase from whatever they needed, any goods, services, food, whatever, from Black-owned businesses. Do you remember that? It made it into the news.
Yeah.
And that was quite an experiment that they took on, and I don't remember the results of it. I was just trying to Google it and find it as you spoke. But we have that's the way. Starting young, and supporting one another in business. Absolutely. And getting ourselves in positions so that we can do the hiring, and we're doing the hiring and the firing. Support.
Exactly. And you just mentioned that what that couple did for 1 year for my resolution was that for 6 months, I wasn't to spend anything, nothing.
Yeah.
And I did that because I wanted to see, what is this? Am I just spending money because I need something, or is this just something I want?
Explain that. So what do you mean you didn't buy anything?
other than like food, I just didn't buy anything. Not because there wasn't anything I absolutely had to have for 6 months. I started to do it for a year, but I was afraid something might happen major that I needed to address. But so for 6 months, I just, whatever I had, I think it was really, now that I'm thinking about it and said the year, it might have been for the year that I didn't buy a dress. I didn't buy a pair of shoes. I didn't buy anything.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And I did that. And
Wow.
the weird thing is that it was okay. Whatever I had, I just made it work for that year. Mm-hmm.
Amazing. I love that. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So it's just trying to, and I did it because I always try to be aware of if I'm getting caught up in the nonsense based
Mhm.
on, who you're around, the conversations you're having. If you're slowly, beginning to think a certain type of way, and I want to be careful about that. And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think I might have to. I think I like that, and I think I might want to do it after I buy a new phone.
I hear. Well, to be honest, I sort of did that too. I got in everything I needed. I was like, okay, I'm set. And I didn't even think, I was like, I think I went out, and this is sad. I went out and bought a black dress. I was like, in case somebody dies, I gotta have this straight. But
Here's the thing, I mean, I haven't bought anything since I've been home,
oh no, not even
right?
I.
Other
I'm
than-
I'm I'm looking at my bank account thinking it's not even changing because I don't. I just, it's
yeah.
like, well, where you going? What you doing? I'm not. And right now, I'm being cautious because you don't know what's gonna happen.
Let me just say this. Let me just say this about my phone. My phone I purchased in 2005, 2015.
Mm-hmm.
2015, I think it was. It might have been, yeah, 2015. And it's an iPhone 6, not a 6S, not a 6 Plus.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a small screen, and I have to use the glasses to see it often. And I've had this phone, it feels like I've had it longer than 5 years, but I've had it for a very,
Yeah. Yeah.
when I got this phone, you know what I replaced? I
Mhm.
replaced a flip phone.
Well, yeah, and there's some things you have to. But what I'm saying in this conversation is just that we be mindful of what we're doing, what part we're playing in our story.
Right.
And that's what we always talk about. But I think it's a needed conversation, particularly now, with so much going on. And I think too, we I've always tried to be careful, and not that I get it right all the time. I don't, but I try to be careful because the reality is I don't have someone to bail me out
Yeah.
if an emergency comes.
If an emergency,
And
yeah.
so if you know that's your story and you know that that's it,
Yeah.
people would love to. And I have people who love us but I don't have anybody like that can write a check and fix it. So if that's our story, then you have to be careful and and act accordingly. So yeah.
That is exactly my story as well. There's no one that could bail me out.
Yeah. And so
No.
we have to make the best decisions we can.
Have to make
But
it.
even with all of that, it's stressful too, and there may be temptation because we're in this pandemic. You're home and Amazon's there, and you can order different things and you can spend money. But I guess just for us to be more mindful of, is it a time for that? And to maybe, because we have more time, process during this time. What can we do? What decisions can we make to shore ourselves up better financially? So when we
Yeah,
come out of
yeah,
this.
that's a good point you make, and I think this might be the time,
Yeah.
since we're at home and not spending as much money to live, that we should be putting, if we can afford to do so, putting that money that we would have otherwise spent into a savings to start trying to create that 3-month buffer
Right.
that's recommended
Right.
in case of an emergency, like
Right.
creating our emergency. emergency fund.
And Teresa, I mean, really, because when we thought about talking about this, the other thing I want us to at least remind people, please participate in the census, because
Oh,
the
that's
census, I know people can be skeptical about it or feel like that's some kind of way for them to be tracking people, but the reality is the census drives everything. Those numbers drive funding on the federal level, the state level, the local level. That's critical in terms of funding and
absolutely
how we get things done for our schools, for the infrastructure, even in terms of our representation in Congress. So
exactly. Yes,
it's critical
it
that
is
we take the
critical.
time to answer those questions, provide the information so the numbers accurately reflect, who we are. So,
Right. And basically it people are afraid of it, but it's just a count really.
right,
It asking any very personal information.
right,
So they just want to know how many people, are in the area.
right. Yeah. And
You
so,
know, they're very basic questions.
yeah, please take your time and fill that out, because we need everybody counted. When they are looking at, like I said, when they are looking at funding, when they are looking at safety, the highways, transportation, public transportation, all of those factors are going to be impacted. When businesses think about, am I going to open up in this area? They pull those numbers to try to make an assessment about who will be supporting them. And so it really fuels everything. So
Hmm.
please participate in the census and provide the information. So, Teresa, I think that's what we wanted to talk about today. We encourage everybody to stay safe. As sad as it is, we're at a disadvantage at so many levels during this pandemic, but we're strong people, and so we will survive. But we also have to look in the mirror at ourselves to see what part we play and where we are, not only in just looking at the COVID-19, but looking at the health impact, which we've talked about before, but also the fiscal impact, and seeing what we can do to shore ourselves up. Yeah.
That's right, because when we know better, we certainly do better.
Take good care.